First one was a girl I'd been seeing for a few months. I was 21 and she was 24 and had a boy about 2 years old. She was basically normal, had a good job, and took care of the kid. She was kind of a dim bulb though, not very bright. I was bored in the relationship and really didn't want to become a stepdad to the kid, so I ended it. No problem. Run into her a month or so later at a bar and we ended up going back to her place for a night of sex. Next morning, she makes coffee and breakfast and I go to school. She goes to work. I get incredibly sick on the way to school, throw up multiple times, make it to the nurse, and vaguely recall being loaded into an ambulance. In the hospital, a doctor tells me I OD'd on an enormous amount of meth and had about 5 minutes left to live before they figured it out. Turns out she had planned this whole thing and decided that if she couldn't have me, no one could. She went to jail but got a reduced sentence for turning on the family member that was making and distributing the meth. I went out of town for my best friend's wedding, in which I was a bridesmaid. I didn't take my boyfriend at the time as per request of the bride. It is her day, and considering my boyfriend and I were on the outs at the time, I was not opposed to this. He's an ADD kid and didn't get his meds refilled before I left town for 4 days. This is his meltdown. Started off okay. We would text back and forth, but I wouldn't be able to reply as fast because, I'm helping with a wedding. He overdosed on Valium and told me he was wandering around outside, then doesn't answer his phone for 6 hours. In which I'm panicking because I'm a 6-hour drive away from my home and I don't know if he's wandered off in his fucked up state or not. I break down. My best friend's stepdad and an ex-cop sit with me and let me know some options on what I can do from far away. Eventually, I sent my apartment manager over to see if he had left the house or not. Apparently, he had fallen asleep because he took so many drugs. The actual day of the ceremony, he flips out again because I don't have time to talk to him at all. Tensions are high for the wedding party as we are pushing to get this ceremony on its way. I leave my phone in my bag while I help the bride and groom. Come back to no less than 10 voicemails and over 30 text messages. Half of it incoherent typing. This continues the whole weekend. I stop responding. Come home to find my blinds torn, DVD player smashed, cooking oil spilled all over my kitchen floor that he made me clean up because apparently it was my fault he knocked it over while I wasn't even in town, and my entire nail polish collection, which was over 50 colors, destroyed. I'm still finding cracked bottles. It's amazing how I haven't died from all those fumes. Red-colored Kool-Aid splashed everywhere, even inside kitchen drawers. I don't even know how that happened. He didn't apologize for any of it. His only words were, "You made me do it. If you hadn't ignored me, this would have never happened." We are no longer together, of course, but this is just one episode of many. This man will be 30 next month. I pity his next girlfriend. I think I was around 18 years old. We'd been dating for about 8 months and I broke up with him because my parents were treating me differently and I didn't like it. It put too much strain on both my boyfriend and I and my parents and I's relationship, and I couldn't take it. I broke up with him one night, and about a week later, he showed up at my parents' house wanting to talk to me. My mom answered the door. I didn't want any part of it, so she told him to go away. He got belligerent and eventually left, so she called the police. He was pulled over and given a warning. Then they let him be. One night, Dad was at work, Mom took my sister somewhere, and I was playing Mario Party 8 on my Wii at home. There was a knock at the back door, and I looked through the glass from the couch. He was there looking in, trying to talk to me. Again, I didn't want any part of it, so I ignored him. He got mad and shouldered the door. The frame cracked. He did it again, and the door burst open. I said, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he grabbed me and put me over his shoulder and carried me outside. I figured he was just going to put me in the front seat and leave with me, but then he popped the trunk of his car with the remote, and I realized what was going to happen. I twisted a little, which surprised him, and he dropped me. But then he put me in a headlock where I couldn't breathe, and I stopped struggling. He tossed me in the trunk and drove off. At this point, I was doing everything I could to get out of the trunk, so I started kicking the back of the seats to get out. I eventually got one open enough to stick my head through to get some air. It was in August, and the temperatures outside were riding 95 degrees, so inside the trunk was about 110. He had calmed down a bit, and I knew he just wanted to talk to me. So he didn't really freak out when I was able to climb into the back seat. When he was putting me in the trunk, the neighbor kids were outside and they saw what was happening and ran inside to tell their parents. parents called the police called my mom, and my mom was doing 95 down the highway to get home. My ex-boyfriend drove me an hour and a half away to an old camp he used to go to, and we talked for a while. He decided he didn't want to go to jail, so he was going back to his house to get his shotgun. When he got there, the cops were waiting for him and tried to taser him. They missed, and he jumped back in his car and did a backwards U-turn. He started driving through the city at speeds of 60 to 85 miles an hour. If you've ever been in a high-speed police pursuit, let me tell you, it's a rush. Anyway, he was going to get on the highway, but the police had it blocked off with spike strips, so he turned onto a dead-end back road. He ended up crashing into a tree. The cops swarmed the car, pulled us both out, and since they didn't realize who we were, cuffed us both and put us in separate cop cars. Once everything was situated, they uncuffed me and put me in a police SUV and transported me back to the police station in my city. My parents and sister were there, freaked out, and found out I was okay. The whole ordeal lasted around 10 hours. My ex got about 4 years and is now out of jail in a halfway house.